whatever part of the world you happen to be in, you are most welcome here. And so good to see all of you, folks who are here together in person this morning and folks who are here together online. It's beautiful to support each other this way. You know, I always enjoy seeing everyone's faces. And let's see. So it's Sunday, and that means we're going to do the Sunday Sounds program, about half an hour or so of meditation, guided meditation, about half an hour of Dhamma talk. Come on in, Deborah. Welcome. And about half an hour or so of questions, reflections, comments. But first, just a few announcements. So one announcement is that we are going to be having, as has been mentioned before, a big celebration. We're going to have a big picnic in the park on Sunday, May 31st. So a couple weeks from now at this same time. Folks online can still join. We will have one person who has offered to be our eye in the sky kind of person.
Our what?
Our eye in the sky. Yeah, somebody who will be doing a little Zoom on their phone. But folks are also, of course, warmly invited to attend in person if you can make it. That's always great. And it'll be a little different program than what we usually do on a Sunday, but we'll do the traditional bathing of the baby Buddha and a little bit of chanting. So the key to that is just to say that we changed the location. So the location is now going to be in Orinoco Park. Orinoco Park. Orinoco Park is just a block up from our previous location, which I won't say, just to not confuse you. But it's a little bit more open and a little bit better layout for us. So we're going to meet there 2 Sundays from now. Also, Summer Book Club has been announced. So Summer Book Club is happening. It's going to be Wednesdays at midday. So we're trying a new time for that. Wednesdays, 12:15 to 1:15. And we are going to study. So book club is not a class. It's a book club. It's a conversation. We get together and we have a conversation about some commentary on the Dhamma. And so we're going to be studying this book, which is called Who is Myself? A Guide to Buddhist Meditation by Ayakema. By Ayakema, one of the nuns who was instrumental in restarting the Theravada Bhikkhuni tradition in the 1900s, in the 20th century. All right, and many other things. So do keep an eye on the website. We do our best to keep it up to date. But for now, this morning, I would like to do a meditation. I think we'll just do a simple meditation on the breath and the feeling tones associated with the breath. So you can try that out. So just settling into your upright and balanced meditation posture. Maybe beginning with some gentle movement of the body and the head. Just loosening up whatever tension you can let go of at this time. And relaxing the belly. Really attending to the natural stability of the body as it settles on your seat. And moving the attention of the torso. Also allowing the muscles of the chest and the ribs to become soft and relaxed. And as the head also comes into gentle alignment with the spine, and then perhaps the shoulders can become softer and wider. And softening the eyes. And softening the mouth. And by now, the sensations of the breath may have come into your awareness. Sensations at the nostrils or in the back of the throat. In the chest or the diaphragm. Or even down in the lower abdomen, wherever you find them. You can just rest your attention on the sensations of the breath coming and going naturally. Staying curious about each breath. Aware of the start and the flow and the end of each part of the breath. Letting the breath be at the forefront of attention. And all the other sensations and thoughts can just recede into the background. the sensations of the breath. You can also begin to notice whether they are pleasant or neutral or unpleasant. And perhaps also noticing that those feeling tones might be shifting over time. Each sensation a little different. Just resting attention on the breath as it nourishes the body. So nice just to sit and be with the breath. Letting the breath be right at the front of attention. Beautiful. So that brings us to the Dhamma talk. And as usual, I'd like to begin with the homage to the Triple Gem. And this is a chant that we can all do together, if you would like. And just to say a little bit about the meaning of this chant. So it says, homage, tassa, this one, thus, Bhagavato means the Blessed One, Arahato means fully awakened one, and Sambuddho also means completely well woken up one. That's all referring to the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. And then we have Buddham, again, referring to him, but also referring to the quality of awakening itself. What is that quality of being awake, completely enlightened? And Dhamma, the teachings, as well as the reality to which those teachings are pointing, those are Dhammas. And Sangha meaning, originally meaning people who were enlightened, and then later on came to mean the ordained monks and nuns, and now and also the more general usage of what we call the fourfold Sangha: lay men and lay women, ordained men and ordained women. And now in this age, speaking differently about gender, we might say the manifest or the multifold Sangha. And Namasami again means honor to or respect to. So we can call this to mind. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. It's funny, I often feel a little sense of stimulation of, wow, it's time to talk about the Dhamma. So we have seen a lot of human firsts in the last few weeks, in the last few months. You know, we saw a man, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, Sawe, a Kenyan man who ran a marathon in under 2 hours. It's not the first time it's ever been done, actually, but it's the first time that it's ever done outdoors in a regular race environment. And then later on, he was interviewed. He said, well, I could have run a little faster. And we had a woman named Rachel Antrakin. I'm not sure, I only mostly read about these things, who ran an ultra marathon, 250 miles over the course of 3 days, beat all the people in the field, man, woman, and otherwise, by 3 hours, broke the record by 3 hours. And we had 4 astronauts, right, who went further than anybody's gone, all the way beyond the moon, and then did this cute little slingshot thing to come back. Right? And many other things. So surely things that I'm not even aware of are happening out there where human beings are going beyond what were thought to be our limitations, particularly our physical limitations. It happens all the time, right? Basically, anytime there's a world record, that's what that means. Mm. And I always find some joy in that. I always find some joy in that, in the knowing that people go beyond what they think they or other people can do. And the Buddha also went beyond what people thought human beings could do. Not in a performative way like sports, but in a way that revealed really the nature of this human life. And he was a human being, but I would say he was a very exceptional human being who was able to find a path to enlightenment without anybody else telling him how to do it. He had to find his own path, at least in this eon, right? He said others have done it. He's the 28th that he was aware of in different eons, in different places and times. But to be the first person to sit down and discover the Noble Eightfold Path in this world, that's amazing. Truly amazing. And the month of May is traditionally when that is celebrated in the traditional Buddhist cultures and teachings. The full moon of the 5th month is the time to celebrate what we call Wesak, the birth, the enlightenment, and the death of the Buddha. All of those together might seem kind of odd, like we're celebrating even that he died, right? All of those together, because all 3 of those are teachings. All 3 of those are demonstrations of what he said was true about a human life. But interestingly, as exceptional as he was, he said, yes, and you can do it too. In fact, he spent 45 years walking barefoot around northern India, telling anybody who would listen about how to do it. I suppose Mr. Saweda would also say, yeah, you could do it. Right? Run the marathon in under 2 hours. But how to unlock this absolute sense of freedom, the sense of being completely unhindered, the total absence of resistance to truth. Imagine that for a moment. Think about how much resistance you have in your mind and your body to what happens in your life. And just relinquishing all of that. It's possible. It's possible. You're on your way to doing it just by being here. So last week I spoke a little bit about the Buddha's path to waking up. And then after he woke up, he enjoyed the bliss and contemplated what he had seen, what he had done for about 7 weeks. And then he got up and started teaching. And so usually at this point of the year, I would talk a little bit about the first 3 discourses of the Buddha, what according to the records that we have, were the first 3 teaching conversations that he had. But what I want to say, what I want to contrast, that I want to point out, that just occurred to me a few days ago, is this very interesting contrast between what the Buddha says he experienced on the night of his awakening. He experienced what are called the 3 knowledges, which are about rebirth and karma and conditionality of this body and mind. Those are basically, if we were to sum up what those 3 knowledges are about. Those were the things that he talked about in terms of the last night. But when he goes to teach it, then he distills it down. He really breaks it down to this very one-pointed set of teachings around dukkha. So dukkha is often translated as suffering, and that's unfortunate because it's not really that simple. Dukkha is probably best translated as unsatisfactoriness or unreliability, or even kind of like an unresolvedness about things. Sometimes I think of it as being kind of like existential angst, if you know what that word means. It's like this kind of gnawing about life. That's dukkha. So he gets very focused on that, and he gets focused on that in a way that he wants us, it's very clear from what he teaches, that he wants us to really think about impermanence and how that plays into this sense that we have, this sense of dukkha. So rather than talk about the first 3 teachings, in part because some of you are in the introductory class or have already done the introductory class, and therefore you're going to hear the talks, several talks actually, on the first 3 teachings, I thought I would bring a different one for you. But just to say, so the third of the 3 talks, let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, the third of the 3 talks is what we call Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, Anatalakkhana Sutta is a sutta on non-self, non-self. And it's the point at which the Buddha introduces a framework called the five aggregates, a framework where he talks about the body and four aspects of the mind. And he uses that as kind of a scaffolding to ask about impermanence. And it's said that many people woke up at the end of that third discourse. Right then, folks who had been practicing, but in other ways. But the discourse that I want to share with you today is a discourse which Bhikkhu Bodhi translates as being devoured, or kind of like being eaten by your five aggregates, by the body and these mental aspects. And it's a fascinating sutta because what the Buddha does in the sutta is he talks about each one of these aspects of our life as processes. Even this body. He says, why do we call it form? So he's kind of doing what he often does, which is this kind of definitional thing. So he states the five things and then he says what they are. But he says, even the body, we call it form because it is deforming, is how Bhikkhu Bodhi translates the word, which is quite literal. I would say it's like falling apart, right? And everybody laughs and shakes their head, right? We know this to be true. Even of kids, right? I mean, it's just the nature of what this thing is, right? Your hair is falling out, your skin is falling off, your teeth are falling out if you're a baby, right? I mean, things are happening. Things are happening. Yes. So even this body is a process, right? Think about eating. You have an apple, you start to bite away at the apple, and at some point, some indiscernible point, perhaps, that apple becomes this body, right? And then at some point, it's no longer this body, right? Whether through elimination or through death or through the natural processes happening. Right? So he says form is like that. Form is constantly in this process of undoing. And so it comes together and then is undone. That's body as a process. It comes together, right? Because we eat the apple and it is eventually also undone. And then he talks about the other four aggregates. So let's talk about those briefly. Many of you probably know that I'm writing a book on the aggregates. So you're going to be hearing a lot about them over the next several months. So feeling tone, this is what we did in the meditation here, right? Thinking about the pleasant or neutral or unpleasantness, kind of basic unpleasantness or pleasantness or neutrality of each sensation. So feeling, he says, why do you call it feeling? Because it feels. It feels pleasure, it feels pain, it feels the neither nor. Therefore, it's called feeling, right? So again, he's talking about it as this process of knowing that one can know, and it's a mental process. Feeling tone is one of the four mental aspects in the aggregate. It can be known that it's like that. I like to use the word valence for this, this kind of like, it's not about the content per se, it's how we feel about it, about the experience. before even applying, like I like it or I dislike it, is a much more primitive sense, very primitive sense. So so feeling is this kind of knowing of this pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. And then perception. And it's such a funny thing because when I first read this sutta, I really didn't understand what was going on here. But now, thanks in part to various commentaries, but also to just being with it for a while, it's brilliant what the Buddha is doing here. So then he says, why do you call it perception? It perceives, and what does it perceive? It perceives blue, yellow, red, white. It perceives, and therefore is called perception. So he uses this colors. He uses visual, right? Visual sensation as a metaphor for all perception here. So he says it can know the differences, right? It can know that this thing is white or this thing is yellow. That's the process of identifying things. That's what perception is. It's a process of identification. We put a little label on it. Often we put the little label in whatever is our language of origin, right? So, yeah, flowers that I first encountered in Spanish, I say flor when I see them in my mind. That's what comes up. So you have perception as a process of distinguishing the qualities of things. And then you have formations, mental formations. And this is where it gets very interesting. Even more interesting already than saying the other processes we've come to so far. He says, we call them formations because they construct the conditioned. Or you could say they form the conditioned. And what is the conditioned that they construct? They construct form, they construct feelings, they construct perception, they construct more formations, they construct consciousness. So the commentary to this says, I love the commentaries because the commentaries are always, throwing in a little idea, usually often another idea for you to relate to this teaching that was offered. So the commentary says, yeah, you make kanji, you make rice gruel, like you make rice gruel, and you make a cake, like you make a cake, and those are all formations, mental formations, right? So it's this intentional activity and the way that we shape the world by our intentional activity. We take flour and water and sugar and make a cake. You see? Interestingly, though, I would add that formations are the mental aspect that activates karmic momentum and karmic results. That is also how we construct the world. Our world. The karmic experiences that we will have in the future, the karmic results that we will have in the future are arising out of mental formations. It constructs the constructed at a very, very kind of universal level. But also in your kitchen, making a cake. Right? And lastly, consciousness. So this is one that could be easily misunderstood here or not clear from this this teaching, the way that it came to us. Then finally, the Buddha says, why do you call it consciousness? It cognizes, or it knows, right? Or it thinks, or it is aware. And what does it cognize? It cognizes sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, sharp, mild, salty, bland. So he uses tastes for thinking. And a lot of times people are like, what? What does that have to do with anything, right? Why that particular set of phenomena of all of them to describe the nature of consciousness. But here's where the commentary was actually had a helpful interjection, which was these are things that are known without the visual, right? So he's distinguishing it from the other part that he gave in the perceptions of the colors by saying the mind can know things that we can't even see. Consciousness is the knowing, even of things that we can't see, like a taste, for example. So we see the creativity of the Buddha here and how he is taking his own understanding of perception of the mind and perception through the body and trying to use these examples to demonstrate something deeper. And the interesting part, before he even got to that, he said this, he makes this very enigmatic statement. He says, when you remember your past lives, and I would say, even when you remember your life 5 minutes ago, what you are remembering is the aggregates. You're remembering, oh, my body was like this, or I had that emotion, or that thing was incredibly unpleasant, and so on. That is what you are remembering. And why? Because you constructed your sense of self and your sense of who your history is on the basis of grasping at the aggregates. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, right? So he says, the sutta says, oh, and then I'm being eaten up by the aggregates. So I am being kind of, you know how we say, what's eating you? Hey, what's eating you? It's like that. The skandhas, the khandhas, they're eating you. That's what's eating you, that attachment and identification and clinging to these things, which by their nature are processes, completely ungraspable. It's like saying, to say that the I could have control or even identify what this thing, this complex of body and mind is like saying that I could just grab a piece of space and define it and call it Melissa. There's nothing there. Just as there's no self. So when I hear people say that they've heard the Dhamma and now they have decided that they are going to, they're going to cut away their sense of self, or they're going to abolish their sense of self, I think, oh, that's sad. That's not really, for one, that's not possible, because the self isn't there for you to fight with. You can't get into a fight with the thing that's not even a ghost or a shadow. Do you see? So we could swing back to the non-self but I think because of the time, I would just finish up here with this, sutta. So I didn't mention that this is Samyutta Nikaya 2279. But there's one part that I wanted to say. Right. So the noble disciple, the person who has studied this, says, I am now being devoured by, I'm now being eaten up by form or any of the khandhas. Pick one, consciousness, if you like. In the past, too, in the very same way, I was being devoured by form. And if I were to seek delight in the future, in form, then I would be devoured by form in the future. And that is how one starts to relinquish this sense of identification by you could say this very precise and subtle reflection on your lived experience as a process. And when that really lands, hanging on doesn't really even make sense anymore. There isn't even the motivation to try to hang on to a piece of space and call it Melissa. That knowing becomes very clear. That knowing that we have to find our peace with this thing being not under our control, not even definable. It kind of goes opposite to what you think. You think, no, 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 I really need to like get a handle on this. But the truth of peace, ultimate peace, is about letting it be as it is. This incredible, inconceivable process that we call human life. Okay, friends, that is what I wanted to share about the Buddha's teachings, just to pick one. And so we have plenty of time for comments, questions, reflections, concerns. Yes, Chaya.
So I may be totally overthinking this, but so I'm trying to, like understand what I've heard you say, but heard, and then like make that work with like what I understand about physiology.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
like it seems to me like when you have a sense of self, like in terms of like a memory or something, like something made that memory come up. It's like something attacked your sense of self maybe, and then like this chemical reaction in your brain happens to bring up a memory that is associated with that. I mean, that's what it seems like to me happens. And so like when you're letting it go, you're just like letting that reaction happen and go away. And like I know physiologically, every time you have a memory, it reinforces. So like if you just let it go, then it's just not going to reinforce. And
Okay.
so, I mean, I'm just like, does that work? Like sometimes when we talk about things, it seems like, okay, we're talking in this way, but then I have to square it with like the other part of me that knows things from a different angle, like scientifically or something. So like,
Yeah, so the way that Buddhism would talk about what you just described, I think, is like we have contact,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Something happened in your body that sparks a memory about something, right? So that feeling of uh yeah, so like if you had an injury and then you feel some pain in the same spot where you had the injury, then that might spark another moment, which is a memory
Mhm.
about when that thing happened.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all in there.
Yeah. But that would happen psychologically, like any kind of thing, not just like physical thing, any kind of.
Right, because the mind can also relate to the mind, right? So, and this is why the it's interesting to think about, the material world and sort of how we are understanding it now.
Mhm.
Like even just the inconceivability of atoms, like particles don't work the way we thought they work, right? They're just probabilities now, right? Like everything is um, to some extent. I forget which professor it was that I saw. Okay, Deborah's giving some ideas over there, but no, but there was a prof who was saying he was just starting a class on quantum physics. And he said, okay, I don't understand quantum. This is he's standing up the first day of class in front of his class and he's saying, I don't understand quantum physics. And by the end of this class, you won't either. That's a promise, right? That's a promise, not a threat, right? So, so, and similarly with the mind is not just what's happening in the brain,
Yeah.
at least not in my opinion, not in my experience. It's way, way, way beyond that. And somebody once, when I said that, somebody once referred to a scientist, a woman scientist who did a study about how other parts of the body could think or feel, like have literal chemistry of emotions or something. And again, I'm kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever. That's not really what I'm referring to, I mean, that would be incorporated in that. But the early Buddhism, and you can't say this necessarily about later Buddhism, there are other schools of Buddhism that would say something different. But in terms of early Buddhism, the Buddha didn't deny the presence of a material and energetic world, right? All he was saying was, and nibbana, and all of that is empty, and all of that is conditional, and all of that is, to some extent inconceivable, right? The mind of an awakened person, or even the mind of a person in jhana, any kind of boundless state, is inconceivable.
I think what I'm getting at is, like for me, I don't know about anyone else, like that sense of self is constructed of memories and stuff. And sometimes I think, how in the world, like it's so automatic. And I mean, sometimes I don't feel like I have any control over any of that. It's just automatic and unconscious. But so I'm trying to understand, like, I mean, it seems insurmountable to me to, like you can't erase the past or whatever, like you're saying.
Right.
You can't, you can't fight us. It's not there, it's
But
not there, but chemically it is. So how chemically do you let it go? You know what I mean?
so I think that the crux here is something like this, Haya. Because even the Buddha or the Arhants, they would look back and say that such and such a thing happened in the past, right? They have memories about their lives. Or they would get up and say, I'm going to walk to such and such a place, right? And make a plan. Like, I'm going from here to there. I will be there in the future, all things going as, planned, right? The question is, why is it you think that that belongs to you? Or that that defines you in some way? If it's just a physical and material and energetic process, a miraculous, beautiful, and conceivable one, okay, I'll give you that. But do you see what I'm saying? Like there's when you have a memory, it doesn't belong to you. It's just a phenomenon.
This process.
It belongs to the stream as long as the stream runs, and then when you're fully awakened, then the stream stops running. But the stream even can't own it necessarily, because the stream is just a stream of energies. She's talking about the karmic stream of unfulfilled karmic outcomes. That's what I think you're talking about there.
And this process in this lifetime,
Yes, yes. Right. It all hangs together in the stream. But even that is like, is that a you?
Well,
really?
No, you.
Right.
But I still have to deal with this process while I'm in it.
Correct. 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 Yes. 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 It's like, and this is where people get tripped up about the question of volition, or are often a lot of debates in Buddhist circles about the question of volition, right? Which is also what these mental formations are referring to, choices that we make. It's like, can there be choices if there isn't a self? Well, there are. That's just a fact. Can there be consciousness if there's not a self? Well, that is the fact. So it's that, you see how it's that like basic framing of there has to be somebody driving the bus, when in fact there is not somebody driving the bus, even though there is driving happening. I know, it's hard to wrap your mind around. I know. But once you see it, it's clear as a bell. Once you see it, it's just clear as a bell. It's like, oh, yeah. No. There's nobody driving the bus.
It doesn't mean the process doesn't hurt, though.
Yes, that's right. It doesn't mean that it's not painful and difficult, and that we shouldn't try to have more wholesome states and more peace in our lives, of course. Yes. We don't just throw up our hands and say, let it be willy-nilly. Because although we do not have control, we have influence. And if we didn't have influence, then there would be no reason to talk about any of this stuff, right? It would just be all deterministic. So I'm going to pass the mic to Deborah, who had her hand up.
Once again, thank you for that talk and for this discussion, Chaya. That's been really very interesting. I just wanted to offer to the Sangha that we have a loose affiliation with the Insight Meditation Center of Washington, IMCW. And there's a teacher there, Shel Fisher, who is doing a one-day retreat on anatta in June, I believe. Or maybe May. Maybe it's I think it's actually the end of May. And it's on a Saturday, and it's going to be in an Episcopal church grounds in the Great Falls area. So it's very accessible for us. I was thinking about going. I've sat one of her day-longs before. She's a beautiful teacher, very full of metta. And I think it would be interesting if anatta and not self is something that's of interest to people to sit that day with her. Anyways, just to put it on to know about it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, well, this is kind of, we're talking about the bus with a driver, without a driver. I was just going to say, I was in San Francisco and rode on a Waymo.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
It just reminded me of that experience.
A self-driving taxi. She rode in a self-driving taxi in San Francisco. Sweet. Sweet. Exactly. Who's driving, right?
He's driving that.
Right.
Which is a Buddhist country.
Here's, please pass it over to Robert.
So I'm not going to even pretend that a lot of this is landing because the head is just spinning right now. But to try and reconcile it with where I am in this moment. So the way I'm coming to think of it is, this phenomena exists. I mean, this is a collection of circumstances, matter, what have you, but it does exist in this moment. But true of everything, it will cease to exist. And then that's where I'm starting to get really kind of fuzzy. So it goes into the stream because my actions and my intent in this phenomena carry forward. So even though, Robert Harvey will not exist in a future life, because I am not going to be awakened in this life, I'm pretty sure. Um, eh, the karmic actions. So even though all phenomena is temporary, and if I recall from prior conversations, even karma is ultimately temporary because once you're awakened, it doesn't affect you anymore. But the lessons learned carry forward as well. So when my stream ends up wherever it's going to end up on the path, is I'm getting lost.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can just give a brief summary of relating to that. So, yes, there is some material and energetic thing happening, body and mind. It's usually referred to it in Buddhism. We would say there's namarupa and there's consciousness, and those two things kind of prop each other up. So there's body and various aspects of mind that get grouped into one thing, and then there's consciousness, and they prop each other up. So when the body goes, then the consciousness cannot stay propped up in that same way anymore. Okay? So the Buddha was very clear that we don't posit strictly existence or non-existence, but that everything is in this state of becoming, like a continual state of verb, not noun. Okay? Including this thing. So that's happening. And that is what we usually think of, or the metaphor that's used for that is the stream, right? So this life that we're experiencing is, you could say, like one slice of the karmic stream that has been hanging together for many, 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 many lifetimes, and most likely will, as you said, continue on for many lifetimes. Karma is not temporary, actually. When you wake up, it's not that karma doesn't apply to you anymore or that it stops in any way. It's that you're so in harmony with truth that you cease to create anything but neutral karma. So there's no more new karma happening at that point. And then when you die, it said that there's no footing, there's no way for karma to like build a thing on top of what's left of the stream. The stream just kind of dissipates into nirvana. That's the way to think about it. So in terms of what's happening now, though, we do have choice. We have volition. We are enacting. We are basically engaging karma as a principle, right? We're kind of spinning that wheel. Every time we do something with intention, we spin that wheel forward to some future results. And the path is about basically those two aspects together. It's about spinning positive things with our ability to make karma, right? So we're trying to make wholesome karma, and we're trying to do beneficial things that will lead to a favorable situation in the future for waking up. That's basically everything we do on the path, all of our activities in terms of meditation and ethics and so on. That's the one side. We're trying to put good stuff into the mix. And the other side is that we are with insight, but to the extent that we develop wisdom and we develop insight, we are basically approaching further and further that state of the resolution of that beneficial karma and a clearing out such that we wake up. So the pieces come together, we have insight, and that means that there is no more new stuff coming out of that. Okay, yes, hopefully that's helpful. Yes, Brian.
You said something during the recent retreat at the Berry Center with the liberation retreat based on different Buddhist traditions on anatta that really clicked. Because the question came up, is there a self? What is the self? And you referred to the sutta, one of the suttas on anatta, where I think there's 5 examples that are really great. The lump of foam in the ocean, bubble, the mirage in the desert, the magician's illusion. And I think the last one was the plantain tree, where there's no real heartwood to the tree. And then you brought up this point, well, is the mirage real? And so in one way it is, because it's light and, moisture and shadow and perception of it. But then when you start investigating it, it is not what it seems to be. It's not an oasis. So that your explanation really clicked there. And my question would be something like this: wisdom, which leads to enlightenment, does that arise out of the 5 aggregates, or is it something altogether different? So I was considering, maybe right action has something to do with volitional formations, or maybe right understanding has to do with consciousness. But if
Yes.
5 aggregates aren't us, what essentially is the quality of an enlightened being or wisdom itself?
Okay, so the short answer is yes. Wisdom is a sankhara. Wisdom is, you could say, a resultant, a mental knowing, and insight. And so it's not that the phenomena aren't happening, the 5 aggregates aren't happening, it's just that there isn't a you. So you have to drop the side of the equation, the other side of the equation, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So it's just like the mirage. And so thank you for bringing up that metaphor, because I really appreciate that one. And that does come from what's called the Lumpa Foam Sutta. And the Buddha says it about perception, but actually for me, it is the perfect actual metaphor for non-self, right? So a mirage, if you're, out in the desert, or you're driving on the road and it's hot and you look out at a distance and you see what looks like water, right? You see some shimmer there. And imagine walking around in the desert like Xuanzang did for a while, and you look out and you see water, right? And then what happens? As you approach, as you get closer and closer, you come to that spot and you see that there isn't water. And in fact, there never was any water, right? So, but the mirage is a mirage. The mirage is something that you can perceive, right? Because there is some phenomena happening. So the self is the mirage, is the water. It was never there. It is never there. The you that you are trying to define isn't there. But these things, the hot air and the sand and the shimmer and those things, they are there. Yeah?
Would it be right to say that, I forget which teacher said this, it may have been Thich Nhat Hanh, but that there's enlightened activity but not enlightened beings? Is that something that would work here?
What he was saying there is a little slightly different, which is that enlightenment is not a fixed thing. So when one fully wakes up, I could say this about any insight, actually, any of the key insights. So insights are the dropping off of delusion. They are the dropping off of ways that we suffer, or ways that we are confused about things. It's not adding anything exactly. So this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh is basically pointing at the fact that when one wakes up, when a person wakes up, it's not that that person then lives in a fixed mental state for the rest of their lives. That's not possible. That again would go completely contrary to all the teachings of the five aggregates. It's just that because they are no longer ignorant and they're no longer grasping at the aggregates or trying to create a self out of the aggregates, then moment by moment, they are dropping off the possibility of suffering. Like things happen. So usually we grab onto experience and we say, oh, that's me. This thing, this body, this thought, this past, this memory, that's me. And we grab onto the experience. But in our hand, a fully awakened person is doing this. The thing happens and it just slides. It just goes because that's its nature and we don't need to do anything else with it. So that's enlightened activity, right? That's the enlightened activity. So that's a little bit different than what I was saying before. But that's okay. We could leave it there.
Thank you. I really appreciate your teaching. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Yes, Carolyn. We'd have just time for one more question.
Thank you so much. This is so interesting. And I'm so excited that you're writing a book on the five aggregates. I didn't know that. Yay. So my question is about the volitional formations and the way they're relating to the other aggregates. Because in that sutta, it seems like they're sort of containing them in some way. The volitional, they construct the conditioned form as form. They construct the conditioned feeling as feeling.
Yes.
So does that mean it's the volition, it's the sankharas that are doing the grasping that creates the illusion of the self?
Exactly.
Ah.
Yes, exactly. It's the sankharas, the formations, the volitional formations that are doing the actual grasping. So in the conversation, the place to look for a little bit more on this thread is the conversation between Ayodhyamadina and her ex-husband, where he gives her the more than 20 questions about awakening. And she goes through this entire discussion with him about the qualities of the mind. And ultimately, he, at some point, kind of in the middle of this conversation, he asks the question, is the grasping or the craving or the clinging, there are various ways to think about that word, is it the same as the aggregates or is it separate from the aggregates? And she answers, it's not the same as the aggregates, as all the aggregates, and it's not separate from the aggregates. It's just the sankharas. It's just that way that we add something onto everything that we perceive, unless we are unlocked from that process of making it mine, making it mine, making it mine, making it be about me, making it be the thing that defines me, and so on.
So could we say that plantain tree is maybe just the sense of self is maybe just like the result of a history of this grasping, which then gives us a feeling.
Yes.
The habitual,
Yes.
it's like
We
I've
take
been
that
grasping for so long. Yeah.
We take that grasping as reality. We believe that grasping to be telling us something about the true nature of the world, rather than just seeing that the grasping is actually an error, that it's just a thought, which is actually a slightly distorted perception, like a mirage or like the trunk of the plantain tree.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Nice. Okay, Miss Dana, it's time for the announcement.
Good morning. What an amazing Sunday sounds. The practice of giving and receiving has always been a part of Buddhism. As you may know, our Spring 26 fundraiser is in progress. Your generosity directly supports our guiding teacher, Dhammadīpā, the vihara, and makes all of DBC's offerings possible. In addition, it will prepare us to touch even more people as we grow. Visit the support tab on the website, see all of the ways you can contribute, whether through a financial donation, volunteering your time and skills, or giving needed materials. Your support is deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Yes, your support is deeply appreciated. Our practice together is deeply appreciated. And we should never underestimate the impact, the beautiful effect that our practice is having on ourselves and on the world. So may we and all beings benefit from the beautiful karmic momentum that we have put into place today, that all beings might find absolute freedom from suffering and ignorance by the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may every being be free. All right, dear friends. Lovely to see you. Next week, Carolyn is going to give the talk. Thank you, Carolyn. And the vihara will be open, so if folks want to gather here and have tea and cookies without me, that's great.
But will Charlie be here?
And come, yeah, no, Charlie won't be here. Charlie will be away with his daycare buddies. But Nina will be here. Nina will still greet you at the door. So, all right, everyone, be well. Take good care.
Thank you. Beautiful class. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.